42, 42, 42. Kaninong puwet kaya? 42, 42, 42, 42. 42, 42, 42. Kaninong puwet kaya hahalikan mo bukas? Taig mo pa ang ahas. Rezbt-S podcast number 42. Maraming salamat for being part of this podcast. Minsan talagang kailangan mag-Tagalog dahil maraming nasusunod at maraming nangunguna na Tagalog artists na kumokontrol sa buhay natin nang hindi natin nalalaman. Kasi bago pa magka-internet, bago pa bagong ways of seeing democracy tuloy, technocracy rather, bago pa magkaroon ng mga bagong iPhone, wala pa nung mga kung ano-anong TikTok platform, memes. Before all those, ang nagtuturo lang sa atin yung song, awit. This was promulgated in a way of some semi-modern number one hit song banda kind of anong tawag sa ganun, succession planning na talagang pinaplano nung mga mas nakakatanda, the seniors, and pinapromise dun sa mga mas nakakabata, the juniors. Ang nangyari sa akin, masyadong maraming junior. Masyadong maraming parang na kasi bata pa rin ako nung nakilala ako at nangyari is masyadong maraming mga 12-year-old, 13-year-old na kinalakihan na yung kung ano yung pinagsasabi ko sa internet. Kaya maaga-maaga ako naging responsable sa pagiging matatas sa matatas or what you call this, maarte sa pagpapalabas ng image and likeness. And in this episode, I'll tell you all about how I got into that mindset. Podcast. Nung bata ako, mahilig ako sa alien. Tapos, ang alam ko lang sa alien na dating alien, yung mga parang, mga mukhang ipis, mukhang mantis. Sabi nila, ganoon naman daw talaga yung mukhang mga alien. At kailangan ko ikwento, since nakapagtatagalog na naman, nagbe-base Tagalog na naman ako. And I'm sort of doing this because I did an update for my clan a while back, and I tried to speak in English. And it didn't work, man. Parang bumabano na rin ako mag-English. Tapos habang mas nagbe-base Tagalog ako, parang paganda na lang ng paganda yung English within the base Tagalog bin, so to speak. And this is a linguistic show. I'm coming from a Shinto-Angular approach, which is sort of remembering the big contributions, the big slashes, so to speak, na nagawa ng mga Hapon sa consciousness ng human history. Because although they did lose the war a lot of years ago, if you have noticed in their anime, they're still making kwento the bits about losing their army, just recovering recently. Recently lang ata sila nagkaparang recovery army. They were sort of the Americans sort of regard the Japanese as like the Germans of Asia, right? Asia is a very big continent, and the sort of the Germans, yung pag sinabing the Germans of Asia, yung mga Hapon, hindi na ibig sabihin na mayaman din sila or galit din sila sa mga puti or whatever. It's just a status they have achieved after World War II, na a status as a culture, as citizen, parang a state of a cultural state that they have assumed na like the Germans, they are apologetic. That's where these sorry apologeticness is coming from. It came from people who lost the war, World War II. And whether what it is that you believe na may World War III tapos na World War IV, whatever, EDSA 3, EDSA 4, whatever, it doesn't matter, man. Sa 2 pa lang, dapat alam mo na. 2 pa lang, dapat gets mo na. Cool na yung 2. Diba? Cool na ngayon yung 2 eh. Dati hindi naman cool yung 2. Kala nila, 2 lang, gusto ko 3 eh. Alam mo yun? Lagi na lang 3. Pero sa totoo, yung mga yung mga pag nakabasa ka na ng mga tamang libro, 2 lang. 2 lang, okay na. Diba? So World War II pa lang, after ng World War II, the apologeticness came not from certain people, not from certain what you call this, preachers, not from certain religions. Yung apologeticness, yung sorry. Alam mo, is that a Korean joke that you understand as sorry? No, it's actually coming from the state of Germany and Japan. Because they are very sorry. And I've told you, I live sort of where near their sorry kind of sorry contributions to our culture. So if we're talking about culture, nandyan yung mga mga proof na nagsosorry sila. Nakalagay sa bakal, sa konkreto. Nandun, ayun, nakalagay. Sorry, Philippines. Diba? May bilog tapos may Philippine flag. Yun yung sabihin nun. Tapos usually pag pauwi na ako sa bahay, naglalakad ako, tinitingnan ko yun. Kahit nung bata pa ako, tinitingnan ko yun. Sarap lang tingnan siguro. I've looked at it probably more than 300 times. And it means something, It means something for them to be able to do that. For them to share their training with us. To share their technology with us. And this is the importance of using technology, understanding technology as a tool. On a more close, concrete basis, isa sa mga favorite story ng tatay ko na kinikwento niya sa akin is mismong sa Pilipinas, wala naman tayong naimbento talaga kahit yung corkscrew, kahit yung tornilyo, wala. Siguro pencil, hindi natin na-invento yun. Ang na-invento lang ata dito, fluorescent light. But I don't even know if that's true, right? Pero kahit mismong, hindi na-invento, mismong manufacturing. Even during the time of my fathers and their fathers, we couldn't produce our own, what do you call this? Screws, Everything is imported from. And what does this mean? I don't think that we don't have the metal for it. I think it's just the fact that we are so oppressed as a culture. Yeah? Nothing really hard to understand these days. We are so oppressed as a culture na ano yung repercussion nung ibig sabihin nung sasabihin mong na oppressed tayo ng culture. Merong technocratic bearing yun. At yung story na yun, alam lang ng mga may alam. And now's the time for us to open about it na alam mo ba na hindi actually masyadong gumagawa ng, ayaw ko kung totoo pa to hanggang ngayon, 100%, maybe up to 80% true that we don't actually make any of our screws here, tornilyo. Maybe there was maybe kinokontrol yung paggawa ng tornilyo, maybe wala tayong technology yung hulma ng paano ginagawa yung screws. So if you think about it, all of the tools we have, all of our products are actually imported. Tama ba? Imported. Yeah, imported. Kaya nga Tagalog na rin yung imported eh. Pag sinabing imported, galing sa ibang bansa, diba? Tapos parang sasabi pa natin na porkit galing sa ibang bansa, mas maganda. Anything actually. US product, culture, sound, language, accents, mga ganyang bagay. Although, I'd like to share in terms of language and what also inspired me to do a solo podcast and keep practicing being, minsan nasasabihan ako makata. Bukod sa natutunan ko lang din yun sa mga kuya ko habang tumatanda ako. Ito yung favorite ko ng mga kinakalakihan ng kanta kaysa yung mga hindi tayo pwede, sa ilalim ng ganito, sa ng ganyan. Di totoo yun lahat, puro marketing lang yun. Yung mga totoo, mag-research ka pa ng mga mas based Tagalog pang awit. So, yun yung pinaka-tip ko sa'yo if you are into that sort of music scale pa rin. But in this social behavioral, social engineering exploration kind of study, you know, a few years ago, social engineering was frowned upon, man. But I'd like to report maybe that everyone that all the content creators now. I don't mean to be mean to some content creators, but you know, you have to be able to look into social engineering because it has now evolved into what we call the industrial organizational psychology (IOP). Which I wanted to learn a couple of years back pero hindi kaya, hindi ako, alam mo yun, hindi na ako pinayagan na, hindi na ako ma-allows na, masend sa China, sa Hong Kong actually. So, hindi na nangyari, inaral ko na lang on my own. And now, mostly I talk about, in terms of business, in terms of pag di ako nagpapatawa, pag di ako, alam mo yun, sa totoo lang, marunong aral ako sa manage. Hindi ko sinasabi to para actually sinasabi ko kasi nakakahiya kasi parang dami kong inaral pero wala naman pala akong naitutulong. May feeling na ganun as an artist usually. Nakapag-aral ako ng management, information systems, and then on my own, inaral ko yung industrial organizational psychology. Ano yung sabihin nun? It is just basically yung curriculum ng paano magpagaling ng slave class. And what I mean by that is the slave mindset rather, as opposed to the master mindset na Nietzsche, diba? What he calls the master and slave and master mentality ba? Something like that. It plays a lot on the industrial organizational psychology because this is work psychology. Ito yung mga minamaster ng HR boss nyo. Ito yung tinuturo sa'yo pag makulit ka sa work mo, sa kulungan mo, makulit ka doon. And me, by just feeling like, I don't, why I do this a lot is because exercise, di ba? Parang hindi kasi na ako nagpapiano masyado. So, and bata pa naman ako. So, alam mo yun, talagang makulit pa yung mga kamay ko. But although, when I'm trying to create a conversation with you as a viewer or myself, parang talagang, in my deepest self, talagang, I'm really calm. I'm calm as a rock, honestly. But, I'm trying to be animated. I'm trying to be, trying to get that perfect sort of animation because I am doing video now. And that just adds, I realized that just adds a layer that helps me contour my muscles in a sense na I could still sing the right sort of notes. I could still speak the right sort of bale ng muscular muscular requirements para makapagsalita ng ganito. So mapapansin mo talaga yung mga talagang nakapagsasalita minsan habang naglalakad, habang tumatakbo-takbo, nakakapagsalita pa rin sila at maganda pa rin yung bugtong, yung ritmo ng mga salitang lumalabas sa bibig nila. And I don't wanna get into that sort of pakita ko sa yung kamay ko, nakaganto yung kamay ko. Pag habang nagsasalita ng ganito, it's not rap. It's just a groove, It's just a cadence. Yun cadence, diba? So once you learn this cadence, makapagsalita ka naman talaga in recording. And kailangan aminin na hindi mo naman talaga magagawa to kung hindi ka nagre-recording. Kung guru ka, kung teacher ka, kung host ka, marami ng trabaho ngayon na nagre-require ng recording at ang nagkakatalo na lang sa pagandahan ng content na nire-record, di ba? So, one of my goals really for this podcast is to be sort of veering on on science and comedy. Not because I'm trying to copy other content creators. Science and comedy has been here for a long time, man. For a long time. So yung ba yung emotion na hindi mo alam kung matutuwa ka or masasad ka, 'di ba? Matutuwa or masasad. And also, just being able to practice seeing my face in the mirror and being a communicative, social, and historical being. Social being, Ian Hacking. Historical being, um, Jordan Peterson. And I'm not a rapper by trade. I'm not a hip hop artist by trade. I have worked with them. I have done so many times in the music industry, but I consider myself more of a fanboy of knowledge, fanboy of free education na nga, and linguistic reform. Hindi ito yung platform ko, ito lang yung theme ng content creation natin. And I don't want to, sometimes, you have to forgive me because in my head, I'm sort of parang, paulit-ulit ako, I'm sorry. But I do want to get back on that apologetic track. Nasaan ba nga nanggagaling yung apologetic track? It comes from the superpowers. Especially yung dating superpowers na magamit ng swords, magamit ng bombs. This is very relevant because if you're living in the internet, you must know that the internet was used to detect nuclear, to be a nuclear deterrent, So to skip a bit and also skip a beat, create a beat onto this, you should actually be looking into the series called Watchmen, just to be a comics about it. Comics na Watchmen, which is my favorite comics by Alan Moore. And sinasabi ni Alan Moore na yung mga niisip niya nung 80s, nangyayari na talaga ngayon. And I think one character there, si Mr. Manhattan, is a very good representation of what internet consciousness is. That very blue, very classic, very in and out, timeless kind of way of thinking. That is what an internet being is like. Someone that is God, someone that is mathematical, instantaneous, and merong multiplicity, could love people, may philanthropy siyang nalalaman, naguhubad siya lagi, at nagtuturo lagi, could wear masks, could hang out with heroes, kind of thing. And when you look at those kinds of media, dun mo parang ang comic media are already specific, 'di ba? Pinag-usapan, I like to share about, I really like studying abstractification and the process of condensing it into some product. And then you get a comic book, for example. So the comic book aspect there is parang dun mo lang mako-connect if, in our culture, ang gusto nating imbis na yung mga matatalino yung gusto nating paniwalaan because we sort of have a different line of thinking. Imbis na sa ganun nating dalhin, minsan niladala natin sa magic realism, which is a very parang chulo, is that a derogatory term? I'm not sure. Which is a very sort of South African, I don't know, but Mexican rather, or like that's what I remember with san ba sina Narcos, sina Pablo Escobar place, 'di ba? Yung kultura nila doon is very much into magic realism, and that's also the root of the Noipi, 'di ba? Yung Noipi, sobrang hilig sa magic realism kasi nung mga nakabahag pa lang tayo, di pa rin tayo marunong mag-helmet, di pa rin tayo marunong, puro pana pa lang yung ginagamit natin, di pa tayo nagsasalita. Nung ginanon tayo, tayo ng mga Portuguese, ng mga Espanyol, tapos winoter flogging tayo ng tatawag na folk Christianity. Yung folk Christianity, pag inaral mo, magic realism yun. Magic realism yun, diba? And you see it in the cultures of the other countries that magic realism is the primary parang sort of belief system na I don't know where you stand on that, but you could, if you talk about it, marami nang magsasabi diyan na talagang line of questioning kasi doon, 'di ba? Maniniwala ka ba naman talaga kung kunyari mahal mo yung tao tapos sabi niya nakakita siya ng multo, 'di ba? Maniniwala ka naman talaga kasi love mo 'yan tapos syempre na takot siya, tapos hug mo siya. huwag ka na matakot, baby. Wala, ano lang yun, ano lang yun, discrepancy lang sa electromagnetic fields ng mga awit-awit sa dito sa atin kasi tapos tapos i-explain away mo with some history, diba? Parang dati kasi merong mga ano dito malungkot na pamilya, nag-move sila dito and then dito na tayo tumira and then ganito ganyan. To be honest, you know, um before I really wanted to believe all those stuff and I do actually, but only to the point that it influences my artwork. Only to the point that it creates for me images that I wouldn't rather be able to concretize. Like as an artist, I would always draw antlers. I used to always dream of antlers. I used to always dream of like swords and like very illustrate things that I love to illustrate. And why I connect all these is because if we create a Venn diagram now, if I try to create a Venn diagram now for the Based Tagalog, the two biggest spheres of context are in fact magic realism on one side, and on the other side, linguistic sciences, right? So on the other side of the Venn diagram, may ano to, meron tong parang meeting point and space where merong halo. But if we look at the extremes of the dualities, right? On one side, there's magic realism talaga. Yung talagang magic lang. Yun yung nagkakatotoo para sa maraming tao, 'di ba? Na humihimas, nananampalataya sa mga lumilipad. And then on the other side, there's symbolisms, high abstract symbolism. So if you could create a picture in your mind of two parts, there's magic realism on one side, there's fictional sort of mumu, capre, mysticism, mythology. We have the mythology,
Non-human
non-human
stuff.
stuff, UFO stuff, alien stuff, light stuff, geometrical stuff. That's part of one side of mysticism and magic, right? And then on the other side is naman this wide range and wide list of visuals of languages, film, language, scripts, news publishing, statements by real people, statements by timely planned sort of word bombs, songs, awit on one side. Especially mga awit na hindi naman parang, alam mo yun, yung parang mahabharata na parang religious. Yung mga awit lang na parang, kumbaga, science lang of language, science lang of love, love language lang. That is a science, right? We have a lot of songs na ganyan in our culture. A lot of Tagalog, either if the metal side, iba pa. Pero yung a lot of medyo mild Tagalog na pop culture is, a lot of them is like mild sort of language, science of language, diba? And ikaw, kung lumaki ka sa cable, lumaki ka sa Nintendo, lumaki ka sa kahit sa lumaki ka lang sa squatters area pero English speaking naman sa squatters area nyo, 'di ba? Alam niyo yung bata pa kayo, English rule na talaga kahit squatter ka naman. May ganun, 'di ba? Yung squatter ka deep inside pero English speaking ka talaga. Or nagtatagalog ka, kala mo nagtatagalog ka, pero in your mind, you're speaking English. You get what I mean? And then when you study the songs of Noy Peace, they're like always talking about love language. They're always talking about gossips, and then so you see that as one sphere, right? And then on the other side, there's naman fictional art, fictional sort of makata na pag-describe ng mga kung ano-anong archetypes. So ano tulad ng 'di ba? And siguro dahil nahihirinan na naman ako, I just like to share that one of the things that are presenting itself to me na masarap gawing based Tagalog, yung mga words na hindi natin masyadong nagagamit sa internet na tulad ng archetypes, 'di ba? When you're describing a tito, for example. A tito is an archetypal man-child, right? A tito, 'di ba? And tito, man-child, fool, could be a fool, bobo tito, or tito geek, tito nerd. So I don't, the vagueness of pop culture right now in our linguistic usage is actually sort of masakit sa ulo, because that's actually affecting a lot of people to be scared about what they could say, to be scared about what they could groove with. And nung nangyayari, sumasayaw na lang sila, diba? Now, there's nothing totally wrong about being a dancer, because it's expression of the body, of using the body as a signal, but at the same time, it only goes to such length na, because there's also body language, there's also linguistic, parang kumbaga sa news meron ding dance publishing eh. Naalala niyo yung sinabi na Drake well, di na napigilan, is like, stop making dance videos, right? Because there's like, when you're making dance videos, you are hyper with movement, you are hyper with exercise, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are getting smarter every day, that you are learning things that people could express and mailabas. Parang, kumbaga, ano lang yan, pampapawis lang yan eh, diba? Pero yung pampaganda ng litid, pampasarap ng kultura, hindi yata nandun sa dance. Because, for example, ang magdedictate lang naman ng dance is memes, trends. But dancing with words, though, dancing with teaching, dancing with philosophies, diba? Parang, or sciences even, yung mga bagong pwedeng pag-usapan sa labas, kalikasan, kung ito na yung sa tingin ko nakakalimutan ng mga maraming nag-aaral eh, or yung maraming pinag-aaral, diba? Kunyari pinag-aaral ka pa pero na-addict ka naman pala sa, I don't mean to be too hot upon this, but I am talking to my podcaster friends about this topic na parang nakakalimutan na ata natin na meron tayong ibang responsibility na ilagay at i-upload sa internet bilang enculturized social beings na nagtatagalog, nagbe-base Tagalog. I don't wanna, I'm always, a lot of you guys maybe alam nyo naman na bakit talaga ako pinagtatagalog, nagbe-base Tagalog. I have explained it in a way, but there's a real reason na masarap talagang sabihin, pero ayoko sabihin. I'll keep that to myself, and it's for you to figure out, because it's out there, it's out there, the better and cuter reasonings for speaking your daddy's language, because okay, so let's use that then I want to use that then to go into a more serious topic, which is honor. Diba? Let's talk about problems, Ang pinaka-problema kasi talaga na nakikita ko pa rin sa Pilipinas is yung, monkey mind. Now, I have discussed monkey mind as a monkey, diba? Pag monkey 2x, gaya-gaya mind, in international mimesis, kumbaga, diba? But also the monkey mind is the, yung walang pisi. Yung kung ano yung next niya na maisip, yun na yung next niya na gagawin. Yung kumbaga, kung saan na siya makakapit, kunyari may sinalita ka, kung nakapitan niya na yun, alis na yun. Kasi kumapit na yun dun sa sinabi mo, tapos ginawa na niyang bagging. Diba? So nag-swing away na siya parang si Tarzan, diba? Tapos na yun, alis na yun. Yun ang monkey mind. The non-monkey mind though would hang on and wait until this thing bears fruit. Right? Yun yung I think a lot of women have now. That patience, that waiting, that one tamad, diba? That one tamad legend na Kahit nandiyan ka, pag may nahulog dyan, yun yung tama. Hindi yung tama yung pabaging-baging ka dun sa, that's more of topic for like the unregulated sexual marketplace na tinatawag. Maybe another episode or maybe another podcast, but, I'm sure sawa na kayo dyan kasi marami naman ng ibang podcast dyan na, sa totoo, chismis podcast lang, pero ginagawang kunwari relationship ko, no? Unless they're married, ano pa ba? Not to digress so too much, but in pop culture, we have to look at that. We have to look at what languages, what symbols we are, kung saan tayo nagbababad. Because on a more serious level, especially on my personal level, because I'm developing the Shinto-Angular approach, which is, the merge between the magic realism and the angular approach, diba? Shinto, things that arise from nature, deities, so to speak, and then the angular approach, the geographical, the geometric sort of measured kind of approach. If you sort of combine them, yung makikita mo lang sa gitna nun is the Shinto-Angular approach. And a lot of that, I think, pertains to a rekindling of practicing honor. And keeping that fire, yung pinapainit pa yung honor, yung apoy nung having honor. Nakalimutan ko yung Tagalog ng honor. Kasi lagi kong naaalala, and why I discussed monkey mind is, lagi kong naaalala, and matagal ko na to gusto express, guys, so forgive me. Lagi kong naaalala is, yung pangalan nun, ang pangalan ng artist na yan, yung may honor. Yun, diba? Artista culture is very funny these days because it's already tapos na. Kaya nga, already call myself a post-celebrity. But I have been enculturized by this parang weird semantic glitch. I got this from a friend of mine. If you're watching, hopefully, this semantic glitch that exists in the graffiti of words that exists in my head. Honor is honor, diba? Honor is honor. Yung ibang honor, iba pa yun. Iba pa yun. Baka that points out to a marketing of a specific cultural movie, cultural person, cultural time. But when I use words, for example, and I learned this from a book recently. Some people respect very much how words are used. And this is why it's a good practice to counteract yung marketing ng tutaismo. And I don't want to teach this, It's just something that I come across with that inspires me to make more art, to make more sound, to make more better recordings, more better. Kasi nga, 'di ba? Ang pinaka teaching na gusto kong pahabain dito, ang pinaka teaching na alam ko na naman. So hindi naman ako nagtuturo talaga. Parang, eto, alam mo na ba to? Wala, ano pang kulang mo eh. Marami ka pang kulang. Alam mo na to. Dapat inaalam mo to. Screen cap mo, nire-record mo, review mo bukas. Pag nag-matter sa'yo to, in 2 weeks from now, mabilis na yung panahon eh. 2 weeks from now, nag-matter sa'yo to, share mo naman, diba? Share mo naman, tag mo lang yung Rezbt-S podcast, diba? Where are we at? We're at respecting using of words. I stumbled upon a really nice sort of serious English video about this na anagram ba yung tawag? Analgram. Na pag baliktad mo yung spelling ng words, naging sword, right? Words, sword. Interestingly, my last name actually means a specific kind of sword. Toledo. Whoa. That was my synthesizer. Anyway, ang pinaka-astig malaman dito is when you're using words, you kind of have to know and use them for their definition because that's how they are designed and that's how they fit into our reality coming from the world of forms, yung abstracted na where sinasabi nila buhay yung mga salita. Hindi nila, si Plato ata nagsabi nito. I could be, philosophy or view lang naman yun. Sabi ni Plato who's very important in terms of figuring out where Atlantis is, right? I digress. But when we bring down the meaning of these words, technology, podcasting, exploration, branding, collective, silicon, dangerous, active, passive. Kulit ng kamay ko. When we bring all these out, they require a certain understanding of parang honoring their definition. How do we not do that? Diba? Negative feedback. Diba? How do we not do that? Yun nga, mismong kunyari, pag may sinasabing ganitong turo, in our malicious minds, baliktad na agad. Kasi dualistic tayo. Makulit tayo, monkey minds tayo minsan. Parang, lalo na ako dati, lagi kong pinaglalaroan masyado yung mga words. Lagi kong ginagawang onomatopeia. Kasi unang-una, English. O kaya ayoko yung teacher. Ini-English ako masyado ng teacher. Gusto ko Based Tagalog, di ba? Or wala pa naman Based Tagalog nun. Kaya nangyari is imbis na magsaya ako na maging parang chill about the learning, pinaglalaroan ko muna and nakatulong naman. But for example, what a lot of older teachers, now much older than I am, are sharing and reminding people like us is kung magsasalita ka na lang, gamitin mo naman ng maayos yung lexicon na meron ka. Just be real. It's not they're not saying to present yourself na marami kang alam. Hindi nagmamatter yung marami kang alam. Ang nagmamatter minsan kung ano yung meron ka, yun yung gagamitin mo. And that will come across as authentic. That will come across magiging tama nun ay totoo ka lang. Pag totoo ka na, ang pinaka nangyayari sa mga totoong tao is mas maraming naniniwala sa kanila. At mas tumatagal yung mga naniniwala sa kanila. Diba, kung gusto mo yung ganun, maraming naniniwala sa'yo, or maraming natatawa sa'yo, or maraming, if you're the type, if you come ever to a part of your life that you're craving for some audience, this is shallow beach mode lang tayo. We're talking about, culture ng mga, na alam na natin, diba? Review lang. Hindi ba na pag nakakakuha ka na ng audience, you're getting that dopamine hit from the likes, from the commenters, o medyo parang meron ka ng digital barkadahan sa digital world, parang nagiging Nintendo Me na nagiging parang nagkaka-connections na kayo in the digital world, medyo may nararamdaman na kayong what do you call that? What's the word again? What's the word again? Yung platonic, diba? Platonic na friends lang, diba? Or talagang hindi sexual. Hindi naman yung malaswa, hindi naman laging kailangan may pinapasok, may sinasaksak, may sinasakal, may tina-turn on. Hindi naman lagi lahat ng tao ganun yung gustong galawan, diba? So, pang mga engineers lang yung ganun. Usually mga engineers talaga mga pornographic yung utak talaga mga engineer, diba? So, hindi naman lahat ng tao ganun. Hindi naman lahat ng tao mahilig sa ganung ay mahilig sa ganung pangungoriente. Hindi naman lahat ng tao nag-aaral ng kung ano-anong nakikita mo sa internet. Mismong yung wifi nga nila sa bahay ay data connection lang. Diba hindi pa nga nakakatikim ng wifi, tas titirahin mo ng mga wifi na kaalaman parang bastos naman yun, diba? Yung bastos na walang pakikisama, diba? So, ang maganda to to stem off from that, that is where actually you could practice yung responsibility of sounding really nice, sounding pleasurable, sounding pleasant, sounding correct, especially if you're a slave like me. Especially if you've reached a point in your life where you are slaving away, you are grinding, dude. We are her, you know, like deep inside. Because there are masters. There are operators. There exist people who hold yung mga alam mo yun, di pa nasanay sa minsan may mga kilala akong ganun na may mic na dito pero yung kabilang kamay gusto may isa pang hawak. Kasi nga Shinto-Angular, 'di ba? Hindi ang gusto natin, dalawa yung hawak lagi. Minsan nakahawak sa ganito sa likod. Minsan hawak na yung kamay mo, hawak. Alam mo yun, dalawa yung hawak kasi dalawa yung kamay. Enough na ba yun, 'di ba? Kumbaga enough na ba yun sa pagiging feeling that you exist? Because I remember recently lang, 'di ba, parang I did the transhumanist declaration na yun nga, 'di ba, na ang pinaka takeaway ko doon is after the lockdown, after the whole lokohan of sipunan ay na and maskan, 'di ba? Kung makapal yung mukha mo, parang mask na rin 'to eh. Sa totoo lang. 'Di ba, yung mga mas makakapal pa talaga yung mukha. Ba't pinagmamask pa ba yun? Ang mangyayari kasi niyan, even though you don't want to be a political mind, at least be an intellectual, a public intellectual, a lifestyle of a public intellectual. Kasi, why? Because when you open your fucking phone, everything, all the information in the world is right in front of you. So you have no excuse to succumb to a political state, yung a politicking state rather of politics, to succumb to the marketing, to the what do you call this, yung pagkukulang ng sinasabi mong politics na alam mo, ng bureaucracia na alam mo, yung pagkukulang nila, sasabihin mo, ganito, ganyan, reklamo, ganito, ganyan. Hindi minsan yun yung responsibility, and that's not always the honorable thing to do, right? Some people try to be funny about it because they're in a position. But hindi yun yung buhay mo. Mag-aaral ka na lang, 'di ba? Lagi ko na ata sinasabi, mag-aaral ka na lang. Parang inaaral ko yung podcasting, inaaral namin yung technology of ano ba yung nagagawa nito for my well-being as someone who just works from home and is sharing a lot of this. Ano na yung masusulat ko a year or two from now, because I'm now totally into podcasting. And nagkaroon ng container. Nagkaroon ng kokote yung yung forms na nilalabas ko, 'di ba? Babalik ko na lang ulit dun sa Venn diagram of magic realism and language sciences, or maybe philosophy of languages, or for design philosophy lang yun. Kasi designed naman lahat ng especially mga type 1 civilization publishing type of discussions. They're all designed, They're all we're all into virology this year, and that's by design, right? Because we're starting a new decade. We have to figure out all the things, cover a lot of ground dun sa mga patungkol sa mga bagay na mas malaki talaga sa humans. And we have to realize that we are in the Anthropocene. Kailangan natin i-share yung ramifications na we are in the Anthropocene, meaning that the humans have covered most of the earth, and human things will cover most of the earth for the rest of the lifetime of the earth. And what does that mean for us? My approach to it is the Shinto-Angular approach. Why? Because I like anime. I like Shinto. Shintoism, that they say was, I think it was abolished as the national, dati siyang national religion, pero na-abolish na recently lang, 40s nga lang ata eh. But it is an ism, an ideology that people could worship and could relate and could talk to or become based with spirits that roam the earth, consciousnesses that are non-human, na gawa ng tao, but also influence tao. Old Tao specifically, right? Shinto. The angular, dash angular. The angular side is really obvious, obvious because I live in a room. I do this in a room. We do this with technology. Everything has measure. Everything has limits. Everything is technique. And when I combine that, the Shinto-Angular approach now that incorporates the Based Tagalog, now dyan ko na malalaman kung talagang gagana yung hypothesis na, gumagana ba talaga yung Based Tagalog para sa buhay ko? Na ever since that I've been speaking Based Tagalog, and I've been teaching and researching Based Tagalog. That's why you can Based Tagalog me and send me other stuff, like sounding like this, sounding like that, sounding like whatever. But as long as you call it or you say it, or you make it part of this subject that it's Based Tagalog, then it's part of it. That we could make it work. I could make that work. That could be a good sample, diba? Kesa ako lang yung nagsasalita ng ganito, ako lang yung magiging based, which is not totally true. There are a lot of even more grounded people na hindi na kailangan magsalita. Maybe magpapakita lang sila ng something, get 1,000 likes, 1,000 shares, and then affect bureaucracy that way. There are many. Kumbaga, whenever I think I'm strong, the next day my practice is to work some more, grind, and realize, there's always going to be a stronger mind. There's always going to be a stronger physicality that is not me. Because I have mentioned doing a solo thing, doing solo projects all the time, I have to keep my narcissism in check. Paano ko yun ginagawa? By being Shinto-Angular. By being rooted in the ways of what I know has affected the Tagalog. I'm not saying I am Shinto-Angular. I'm saying that if you see it from that lens, na the messaging from me to you, na if you could just see it from a Shinto-Angular approach, then you might be seeing things that are Based Tagalog. That would be really cool if you could report that to my company, to us, to everyone, since it is a public thing. It is something that is given already. It is something that could affect our design senses, could affect our hearts, minds, kind of thing, and could also become ang pinaka magandang dream factor dito, sabihin ko lang, para mauna na rin ako, is matrato siyang bilang isang thing that is preservable, unstoppable, and academic. Bagong akademya. Bagong academy. Bagong school, diba? Kaya nga BTS eh. Bagong Tagalog school na cool din. Sakto lang. I'm not trying to be old. I'm not trying to sound like, my idols in the broadcasting industry. I'm not trying to be even a broadcaster. I mean, masaya lang ako na, I'm playing around with colors, playing around with things that I could present. And in that sense, I'm very grateful. I'm very sort of anxious. I'm also very excited to be experimenting more. Kaya salamat sa'yo na nakikinig sa Rezbt-S podcast. I hope na gamitin niyo yung comment section or voice messaging features to help my research and to help me sort of forward this study of Based Tagalog. And this is a jump point episode, a lot of you could say na if you don't know the podcast yet, you can jump in from this point. You don't have to totally start from the older episodes. Although that would be cool, but you know new and more upgraded. There's new things coming. There's new plans going on, and it should be October pa lang naman, 'di ba? So I have maybe 2 or 3 more weeks to sulitin yung year na to para lalo pa nating mas mapaganda yung effect ng ginagawa kong trabaho. And the reasons behind that. The reasons behind that is because it's cool, it's fun. It's fun. It's contemporary. So I actually see, that's why I speak with like you like this, speak to you or record like this in because I actually see a lot of people as my contemporary. And that way I heal myself from narcissism, from like being all talino mo na, smart ass ka na. I don't think of myself that way anymore. I don't think like a megalomaniac anymore. I actually want to know more people. I want to be able to mas mahaba, I want to go back to a time where people send me 2 pages, 'di ba? Mabilis pa na magbasa eh. Thank you very much. My name is Rez Toledo and you're listening to the #1 Based Tagalog podcast in the universe. Rezbt-S.